Welcome, everyone. This is the Masterclass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of teaching experience, and I would like to help you dispel your doubts, should you have any. Today, we look at the story Going Places, written by A.R. Barton. A.R. Barton is a person about whom we know very little. He keeps his personal life very private. All we know about him is that he's an English writer who lives currently in Zurich, which is in Switzerland. He's a modern English writer. He writes in English and focuses on contemporary themes. He is especially gifted at writing realistically and understands deeply the emotions we go through as teenagers, and he is able to depict working class life very realistically as well. In school, when we are going to pass out, when we are teenagers, we tend to daydream what we want to do about our lives, what we will be when we grow up. This is the story of one such girl. We meet Sophie when she is leaving school along with her friend Jansie. What are they talking about? What they're going to do after they get out of school. Sophie says she is going to have a boutique. Her friend Jansie looks at her. How is that possible? It takes a lot of money and you will not have money. Sophie says, fair enough, I will be a manager then. Her friend points out again, in order to be a manager, you have to work hard. You will not be appointed as a manager directly. It will take time and effort. And she says, no, I will stand apart. They will make me a manager immediately because they will see that I am very good at my work. I am better than what they have. Jansie knows that the most realistic option that they have is that when they get out of school, they're going to work at the biscuit factory. She becomes a little sad. She doesn't want Sophie to have such fantasies which will never come true. So Jansie tells her, listen, think about something which you can do. Think about something sensible. Don't go dreaming about things which you cannot do. Think about something sensible, which your dad will allow. Sophie's not listening. She is like, okay, if I'm not a boutique manager, perhaps I can become an actress. Perhaps I can become a fashion designer. It's anything that is a bit more sophisticated. And she comes to her house. She turns into the door. She turns around and tells Jansie, if I have money, I will buy a boutique. Her father is in the house. She hasn't seen him. And he replies, if you ever come into money, you will first and foremost buy us a good house to stay in. He is sitting there with his youngest son, Derek. And Derek laughingly remarks that she doesn't understand how important money is, does she? Her father was sitting at the dining table eating shepherd's pie. He had just come back from work. His face was still grimy with dirt and sweat stained. The mother doesn't say much. Sophie looks at her. There she is, bending over the stove. Her back is almost crooked because she bends over the stove, she bends over the washing, she bends over the dishes all day. As she comes into the house, and the house is described, we realize that she comes from a very poor working class family. And she has an apron tied around her. That apron is tied very delicately with the bow. And in her own mind, Sophie contrasts the delicacy of the bow with the amount of hard work her mother is doing, and she shivers. She is upset. She doesn't wish to end up like her mother one day. She goes and looks for her elder brother, Geoff. She finds him in the next room. He has been out of school for 3 years, working as an apprentice in a motor shop. He is trying to be a mechanic. She sees him looking at a part. He had his motorcycle opened and he was looking at a part, was trying to make it. When Sophie looks at him, she realizes that this brother of mine has grown up. He knows very many things in life which I would like to do. If he wishes, he could tell me about what he does. But he won't, because her father has told him not to. She wishes she was grown up enough to go out with Geoff, to glimpse his life, to see the things that he has seen. Geoff is a person who speaks very little. Mainly he listens. If only he spoke, then he would tell Sophie what he knew. But he doesn't do that. She knew very well that Geoff considered her too young to do whatever she wanted to. When she comes in, he continues looking at the part and she breaks the silence. She says, I met Danny Casey. Now Danny Casey is a famous footballer. It's like you come back to the house and say, listen, I met Virat Kohli today. He turns around, what? And she tells him, I met him in the arcade. Arcade is a place with the video games. And she insists that she did. So he asks her, did you tell Dad? And she says, no. And Geoff, of course, knows the sort of person his sister is. And she tells her very clearly, I'm sure you didn't. So she says, no, I was simply looking in the departmental store, Royce's store. And there he was. Jeff asks her, what did he look like? So she described him. Green eyes, he was gentle, he's not tall. She stopped over there. She wondered whether she should tell something about his teeth. Then she realized perhaps she shouldn't. The father comes in here. He switches on the television. He sits on the sofa. One of Derek's shoes is there, which he chucks on the floor. Geoff tells the father, Sophie met Danny Casey. The father turns and looks at his daughter. Not possible. And Geoff says, no, she's saying it is true. And the father says, I knew a guy who had known Tom Finney, again, a very famous footballer. Then they start to discuss Casey, how good he is, how well he can do in future. And while they're discussing Casey, Sophie comes in again. He said he's going to buy a shop. The father says, how do you know that? Sophie tells him, because he told me so. Her father had heard enough. He said, this is another of your daydreams. Joff is protecting her. She tells him she met him at the arcade. This is what happened. And the father tells his daughter, listen, one of these days you're going to say something and you will get yourself into a lot of trouble. But Sophie doesn't back down. And she tells Joff, you know it's true, right? And Joff doesn't answer, though her father does. He doesn't believe you, even though he would like to. It is night time. Sophie has gone to Joff's bedroom. They're talking. And she tells Joff, promise me you'll tell nobody about Casey. Joff shrugs, there's nothing to tell. So Sophie says, no, there is something to tell. And he says, Sophie, you're still a young girl. You're still at school. How can somebody who is so well known talk to you? How can you know about him? He would have lots of girls to talk to. Why would he want to talk to a schoolgirl? And she keeps on insisting, and he tells her, listen, apparently he talks a lot. She says, no, he doesn't talk a lot. He says, no, apparently he talks a lot because he's telling you all these things about himself. Then she comes up with an explanation. She says, Joff, actually what happened was, he was standing there and I just asked him, like, are you Joff Casey? Because she herself couldn't believe it. And he said, yes, he was. Then she knew it was him because of the way he spoke. They had seen him being interviewed on television. She asked him for an autograph, to give her brothers. But as luck would have it, neither he nor her had paper or pen. So they simply talked about the clothes, about him, because according to her, he seemed lonely. And apparently Casey told her that if you really want an autograph, meet me next week, I'll give you one. And Joff says, really? He told you that? Sophia answers him, absolutely, you do believe me, don't you? And he told her very clearly, it's highly impossible. On Saturday, they go to the stadium to watch the football match. The father, the daughter, and Derek sit together, and Joff goes to sit with his friends. The match has been won by their team United 2-0. Casey has scored one of their goals. He is the topic of conversation, how well he played. Somebody says, I wish he played for England. I wish he was an Englishman. Why is that? Because in football, Ireland is a separate team and England is a separate team. Derek, he's young. He's seen Danny Casey score a goal and he tells his mother, next time, Ireland will win the World Cup. Father had gone to the local pub to have a drink and celebrate with his friends. Their team had won. Jansie asks her next week, apparently you're going around telling people that you have met Danny Casey. And she says, how do you know? Your brother told my brother so. Sophie is upset. She tells certain things to Jansie, certain things to Joff. She doesn't want it overlapping. She doesn't know what to reply. And then Jansie goes on and Sophie understands. Joff has only told her brother about how they met. He had not said anything about the date that they had set up. So she tells Jansie, listen, this is actually what happened. So Jansie said, what are you upset about? Why do you think that there will be a lot of shouting in your house? She said, nothing like that. People will come around asking me, where did you meet Danny Casey? Answering questions. My father will not like that. That is why I did not tell anybody anything. Jansie says, fine. That night, she goes to the canal. She waits. She waits for Danny Casey to come. She sits down at a wooden bench under the elm tree. Time passes. The night grows longer. There is no sign of Danny Casey. And in her mind, she goes back in her fantasy. She remembers how she had met him. Now, you and I both know that she is simply daydreaming. She is trying to convince herself that she did meet Danny Casey. So how did it happen? According to her, we are told that her father had left his cycle at the pub. She was happy that she would not have to meet him when she went home. Instead, at the arcade, she met Danny Casey. She had seen this boy and she said, aren't you Danny Casey? And he said, yes. So she asked him, would you mind signing a photograph? What appealed to her about him was that he was her size. She could look into his green eyes. She describes his nose, describes his smile. She even notices gaps between his teeth. And then he says, I'm sorry, I don't have a pen at all. And she realizes she doesn't have either. And then she tells him, my brothers will be very sorry. She stands over there after Danny Casey is gone, remembering him, remembering the way he looked, remembering the way he sounded. She's thinking about Danny Casey, what a genius he is, how good he is at football. And she sees it again, what she saw on Saturday with her father, with her brothers, how Casey tricked two defenders and hit a goal, and the sudden noise, the sudden applause which greeted him. Who are the characters in the story? Sophie, who's a teenage schoolgirl. She dreams wild fantasies about her future. Actually, she's from a poor working class family. Imaginative but disconnected from reality. She looks up to her brother Joff. Joff, who is Sophie's older brother. He's an apprentice mechanic. He's 3 years out of school. Quiet boy, reserved. He's protective of his sister, but he doesn't believe the story she says. Jansie, Sophie's practical, pragmatic friend. She tries to stop Sophie from having these unrealistic dreams. She understands that both of them in the future are simply destined to work at the factory. She understands her reality. Sophie's father. He's a working class man. He comes home dirty and tired from work. He doesn't believe what his daughter tells him. He understands that they're stories. He loves football. He spends time at the pub drinking with his friends. Sophie's mother, tired, worn down by life. She works hard at home and doesn't say much. Little Derek, Sophie's brother, who's an innocent boy, enthusiastic. Danny Casey, an actual person, a young Irish football prodigy, but he only exists in Sophie's imagination in this story. He's a symbol of success and escape. What are the settings described in this story? We understand it is a working class neighborhood in an English city, specifically Sophie's small cramped house. We learn about the arcade in the city. We are taken to the football stadium, a canal with a wooden bench under a solitary elm tree, Royce's shop window, the local pub. The time is probably in the 1970s to the 1980s. What are the literary devices used here? The stream of consciousness. We hear Sophie's internal thoughts as she sits by the canal, hoping against hope that her fantasy will come true. Imagery, the descriptions of the cramped house, the canal, Danny's appearance. Symbolism, the boutique, which represents Sophie's dreams of escape. Danny Casey, unattainable success and glamour. The canal, isolation and secret wishes. Irony, Sophie knows Danny won't come. Sophie knows that the story that she has been telling is a lie, but she still waits. Contrast between Sophie's fantasies and the reality she lives. Foreshadowing, Jansie keeps on warning her that Sophie's daydreams will never come true. Characterization through dialogue. Characters are revealed through their speech patterns. Point of view, third-person narrative that goes into Sophie's mind. Repetition, story, Sophie retelling her fantasy about meeting Danny multiple times. First to Geoff, to her father, to Jansie, to herself. What are the themes that run through this story then? Adolescent fantasy versus reality. There's a large gap between teenage dreams and real life. Hero worship, where celebrities are idolized as an escape from ordinary life. Class and social limitation. Poverty restricts opportunities and also futures. Escapism, how you people create fantasies in order to avoid facing difficult realities, true realities. Family dynamics, the relationship between siblings and parents in working class families. Growing up, the painful process of accepting reality. Loneliness and isolation. Sophie feels trapped and misunderstood. The power of imagination. Fantasy is both a comfort and a trap. We can use daydreams to comfort us, but we should never allow ourselves to actually believe in them. The power of imagination. Disillusionment, the sadness of dreams that are unfulfilled. Self-deception. Sophie does not just lie to others, she even lies to herself, which is something you should never do. You should at least admit the truth to yourself. That's the lesson there for you then. I do hope I have been of help. If I have, do remember to like, subscribe and share. Remember, there might be others who will be requiring our help. Thank you so much for watching.